This is Mario with Mia Microflight, and in this video I'm going to show you how to convert your JJRC H12C to something a little more sturdy and lighter weight. Now, I bought two of these just to fool around with my son, and he's been flying his quite often, and he finally broke the shell of the model, which holds the four motors and also the wiring and some of the electronics. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, this is my own, I'm taking my own and taking it apart so that I can design a more sturdier frame. Now frames to me are nothing new because I've been doing frames for a while now, so I'll be able to whip this frame in no time on the CNC machine. I just have to get some measurements so that I can obtain the same distance that the original product has. But what I've done here is basically remove the skids or the landing gear. I've also removed the propellers, and you'll notice I have a little tray here that I put all my screws there. You need something like that to hold all these little parts if you're going to attempt to do this. So you can get a small cereal bowl if you want to keep all your parts together. So basically this is what the model is looking like without the shell removed. Now I'm going to go ahead and just remove all these shafts with the main gears. You'll notice I just pulled also one of the bearings. I believe there's another little screw here that's preventing me. Yeah, there's a little screw there. Alright, there you go. Let's put that screw away. And so basically that's what the shell looks like. I mean, these toys are very lightweight, molded plastic mainly, and they're done that way to keep the weight down and to make them look a little spiffy. I mean, this particular JJRC H12C does come with a very spiffy shell. They're very lightweight too, because they mold these things very thin. But the drawback of that is that they don't last very long. Do you really need the shell? You don't. For training purposes, just for if you're trying to fly this for fun, if you want something a little more durable, I would do what I'm about to do in this video. So I'm going to remove all the components here. This is basically the gearbox that comes with these toys, and I'm going to remove all these things carefully, and then I'm going to reinstall that in my own frame. Now, just to give you an idea what my frames look like, I'm going to show you a frame that I did for a similar quadcopter, and this is my own. This is called the MIA Bullet, and this is done in G10 material because this is what I had at the time, but it can also be done in carbon. Now with carbon, it is a little more stiffer, and it looks a lot nicer, but you really don't need carbon when you're doing a conversion such as this, if you want to do it quickly. So I'm going to be doing something like this, and the footprint on this is very similar to this particular MIA Bullet. Okay, and this one has guards already embedded into the design of the Mia Microflight Bullet, and this I did in two plates. So this has another plate, and it's got spacers on the side to give it full protection for the propeller. Now, why did I call this one a bullet? Because it's in the shape of the head of a bullet, and I mean, you really don't need all this material here, but on this one I did it because I could afford with the motors that I was using on this particular shape and design. But very similar, I'm going to be doing a frame for this one here, except it's going to be it's just going to hold the motor, the gearboxes, and it'll be a lot more sturdier, and it'll be lighter than the shells that you get with this product. But you will be losing the aesthetical appeal of the JJRC H12C. It's a very nice, cool design, and it kind of reminds me of the canopies that I was doing for the Blade M2X, if some of you remember that product. it's on my website. I did a similar shell, not a full enclosed shell with the arms, but I did this part right here, and it's very reminiscent of that very subtle curvature, but not too rectangular and not too round, like a pancake. So it's got a very nice design. So basically this video is just to record this the process of this particular modification. If you happen to have the JJRC H12C, it's a very nice toy grade quadcopter. In the toy grade, you're not going to get some things like you do in the hobby grade. For example, these bearings are nothing more than brass bearings. They're not ball bearings. They're made out of brass, and they have oil embedded into the material so that you can use shafts like this one here is a steel shaft, so that allows the rotor to spin freely, but not as freely and not as efficient as if you would have ball bearings. Now, if you guys remember the Blade MQX, that one has ball bearings. I've been showing the Blade MQX modified, in some of my FPV training videos, which I call the MIA Trainer FPV quad. And that particular quad has ball bearings for the shafts. The other thing with that hobby grade Blade MQX is that the motor shafts are attached to metal gears. I think those are brass pinion gears. And those pinion gears are press fit onto the shafts a little better than these nylon ones. These nylon ones, when the motors get a little warm, they tend to come off, and you risk losing some of these if you fly consistently and hard. These toy grade models. So some of the features, the differences between toy grade and something that's more of a hobby grade, like the Blade MQX. And that's one of the reasons that I also use the Blade MQX as my platform for FPV training. Now, this can also be used for FPV training, and like I said, I bought two. One for my son just to get him into the FPV flying. But right now we're just concerned with the structure. We want to make it a little bit better because he ended up breaking his. He flies these things very hard and more aggressive than I do. So he just called me and he said, Dad, I broke this, and I said, bring it home and I'll create a frame for you. So I might as well create a frame for myself, and I might as well offer those frames to anyone that has the H12C. The next step is going to be to, I'm going to be doing this very carefully, as I'm going to be removing the board here. Now these boards are fairly decent boards, for toy grade, because they have a 6-axis stabilization, and they have LEDs. They're all tied to the firmware that's embedded into the boards, into the memory chips, so that everything works without much fuss. If you had to build a 250 size, for example, more pro type FPV quad, you would have to buy the board separately. You would have to buy the LEDs separate. Some of these boards don't come with those features that allow you to trigger the LEDs when the battery is low, for example. Those warning features. And so you would have to piece all this together, and it's a lot more complex and a lot more involved if you go that route. There are many people that are doing that, actually, that get into FPV racing. But if you're just starting out and you have a toy like this, will get your feet wet, so to speak. But you do need something a little more sturdy than these plastic frames or plastic enclosures that all this electronic gear is embedded in. And the same process can be applied to any particular toy grade quadcopter that's on the market. Most of them are basically the same. They all do the same thing. They all fly. They all have the same features on the boards. Some have better features than others, but it's basically the same thing. You have a flight control board that's doing all that stabilization, and it's got all the speed controls built into for the motors. And most of these toy grade quadcopters in this particular size, this is almost like a 250 size quadcopter, measured from motor to motor diagonally. They all come with these geared coreless motor setups here, and that is just to give you a little more lift per the given size of quadcopter. So this is ideal. This was embedded into the Blade MQX, and that's one of the reasons also that I like the Blade MQX, because when you start removing all the unnecessary weights, such as the canopy, this enclosure here, and you just leave the structure as required, just to hold the motors and the electronics, you end up with a very, very lightweight setup. Now, my Blade MQX modified, the way I show in some of my recent how I learned to fly FPV videos, that one weighs 79.5 grams, including the onboard camera. Now, this one doesn't have a camera, but it can also be embedded in this inside the case here if you were to keep the case. But since we're not going to keep the case, I will design the frame with provisions to hold that little tiny camera. I think it's an Elite made by Quantum. It's a very nice quarter watt transmitter built onto the camera. And if you take that camera also and do some better antennas for that, it'll give you a little better range, which is what I've been doing with mine. Just give me a little better range in my backyard, or even if you go to the park, or even at night. So let me get to this. Enough talking here, and I'll come back to this video and show you the frame that I designed for this particular one that I'm going to also give to my son. And I'm going to make this available for anybody that wants to do a similar setup. It's Mario with me on Mercury Flight. Come back to my video in a little bit. Thank you for watching.